WeebaLu here. If you're new here, this is a series where I'm going to be explaining all of the Evillious Chronicles. If you want to catch up, I've got a playlist here on my channel if you want to know about the absolute insanity I'm talking about before we get started. Firstly, where we last left off, Ma, a amalgamation fusion of several characters after the Sloth storyline, is looking to gather vessels of sin and is now in the original body of Kaio Suduo, who was killed about 100 years before this next story starts. Second is some minor corrections thanks to you guys in the comments. I can't read all the light novels due to time constraints as I have other projects I'm working on in the background, so I try to do as much as I can to understand the basic gist of it, because I'm also trying to make this digestible, and a lot of sin stories go on tangents that are never really brought up again, and it's just drama to add to that particular story. So here are some minor corrections. Kaio actually killed Mei first, then Miku and Rin. This is due to the light novel going into a different order of events compared to the actual song, which does get a little frustrating when the songs are heavily retconned in some way, which is weird because the songs is how everyone's introduced to this, but oh well. Kaio never actually had scars, but hallucinated them instead, which is a build-up to the trauma and later mental breakdown following the fire. Her scars she should have had from the fire miraculously healed thanks to her demon blood, but mentally she was a complete wreck. Ma needed Kaio's body due to her stronger magical concentration due to her octo and demonic bloodline. Ma, or I guess the arena side of her, needs to frequently switch bodies due to the magic in that body not lasting forever to keep her alive outside of her cat body. At least before, Ma doesn't need a cat body now. If anyone is familiar with Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, it's kind of like how Hohenheim and Dante often had to switch bodies to stay alive, or the game The Witch's House, if anyone is familiar with that. Alright, let's get started with the story. After some time, Ma met and fell in love with a man named Gandalf Marlin in the kingdom of Levianta. Due to his high status in the court system of Levianta and his previous status as a Marlon, we find out a lot about the Levianta justice system, which is pretty similar to the US justice system, which means we're gonna get a story about themes of corruption, because what better place to talk about that, am I right? Ma later broke into someone named Mata Corpa's house to steal back the Spoon of Greed, as her plan, if you remember, is to gather all the vessels of sin and consume all the demons in them to become a perfect being. So I guess she won't die following a prophesized cataclysmic event. She then killed Mata and absorbed the demon of greed, Salem Dunbar, and this gave her the power to extract Levia and Irina out of her soul, so I guess that's good since Irina's bad fucking news anyway. Needing vessels for these souls though, she decided to use a colleague's daughter named Lilith Baldered. Ma then experimented on and destroyed Lilith's entire soul, making her an empty shell akin to a literal doll. But Levia refused to go inside Lilith's body. Since Lilith was still useful as the perfect servant, Lilith made her a servant simply named Postman. To make this even more fucked up, Lilith is also a reincarnation of Rillian because this girl can't catch a fucking break in these reincarnations. During this, Ma actually had a son with Gandalf named Galerian Marlon, but was soon captured and tried for witchcraft due to Mata's murder. The Freezes Foundation themselves actually wanted her executed, so Ma later had to go into complete hiding with a fake identity and everything. Galerian grew up learning his mother was executed via an unfair, corrupted trial for witchcraft, where I think Ma sent Sickle to watch over him as a child. I could be wrong though. At least I think Ma sent Sickle. Sometimes I feel like Sickle just kind of like appears out of nowhere, just so a storyline can have that cool moment for a promo picture featuring the mascot. If you're wondering where Ma is now, she changed her name to Kaio Suduo and writes plays with Ma as her pen name, while also lying and saying she's Iluka Clockworker's disciple, which I say is a lie, because she technically kind of is Iluka Clockworker. However, her films were popular for bringing the Evillious events till now to light, so I hope everyone cried over a Servant of Evil movie the way I would. Galerian grew up pretty normal for the most part, besides Sickle sometimes following him, becoming an incredibly smart boy, but with not much to his name, as I believe the Marlon old money likely dried up. If you ask me, it was probably the damn legal fees trying to rescue Ma. From there, he made friends with a man named Loki Freesis, who are both descendants of Perry Cutie Marlon, which, again, has me a little concerned why a Marlon and a Freesis are biologically related. I just keep telling myself that it happened years later with two adult consenting descendants, and not Kyle doing things he really fucking shouldn't have with Yukina. Galerian was about 14 when he and other students went on a field trip to the most famous courthouse in Levianta to witness the trial of a witch named Lana Ray. The trial even brought up Ma's name during prosecution, I think, which he then discussed with Loki about the whole thing and about Lana likely being tried guilty or whatever. Galerian then tells Loki about how he wants to become a judge despite his lineage as a Marlon, which I think is vaguely hinting that he wants to do it so other people don't end up like his mom, maybe? It feels a little vague, but I think it's to imply that Galerian used to have a semi-strong sense of justice. Become a judge he did, but for now he was climbing through the court system and eventually became judge at barely 18 years old. Sadly, all this, his friendship with Loki, was dwindling due to Loki being incredibly jealous that Galerian was talking to his girlfriend. I guess dude realized he was a Kaito clone and stood no chance. So one night, Galerian was preparing for his first trial of a woman named Kyle Suluo and realized from old photos and his nanny that this woman looked identical to his mother. But his nanny told him that's impossible because she should have been much older looking by now and not this young face she has. If you remember, Ma is immortal, and I don't think anybody else knows that, so... Now what was Ma tried for this time? Witchcraft. Again. She was illegally screening movies that told of several stories in the Evillious Chronicles we know by now, like The Tailor of Enbizaka and The Journey of Two Mages, which she was then ambushed by an anti-witch group for claiming her films were witchcraft. So she struck them with lightning and was then arrested. So the government of Levianta wants all witches to have a 100% conviction rate and execution, as magic at this point is deemed evil, to which Galerian disagreed in convincing Ma, as her calm answers made him believe that she must be innocent at the time, despite the prosecution being pretty damning with its evidence. At least I think so. He then declared Ma innocent, which sent the entire courtroom into chaos, but Galerian explained to a colleague that it would have been easier to have someone knowledgeable about magic alive to find witches for them. He also figured Kaio, the apprentice of, quote, Iluka, would be easier to be his ally, since Ma's name when she was, Galerian's mom, was Iluka. After that, Galerian would hang out with his friend Loki, where he saw he was being super racist towards a character named Bruno Zero, who will become more relevant later. This, and just generally speaking with Loki's girlfriend, pissed Loki off so much that he actually wanted to kill Galerian after their hunting trip together, where he was then shot and passed out, and he was found by the Levianta military and placed into a lab created by Seth Twilight. Two women named Shiro Netsuma, a possible reincarnation of Clarith, and an ex-nun from the monastery Clarith created, and Hel Jocko, an ex-Freesis employee. There's also a tiger in there that's transformed and was once a human named Feng Li. This series gets really fucking weird. Demanding answers, Bruno came in to say that he should have revenge on Loki for wanting him dead, but Galerian said the justice system should do it instead. That's when Bruno offers Galerian to be the leader of their organization known as PN, or Pierre Noel, which, if you remember, was the name of Irina's assassination group thing, so I guess this is Pierre Noel 2 Electric Boogaloo. Bruno explains that the court system would protect the Freesis Foundation given their wealth, and so Galerian was more than tempted to have Loki face justice because of this corruption. Ma then comes in with Postman to explain basically what you already know about the Freesis Foundation sadly becoming super corrupt, and fucked over Iluka during the story of Sloth. Since if you remember, they blamed her for Shaw's death when that doesn't even make any fucking sense. And that Loki has her syndrome, which is a disease that basically makes you super fucking evil and want to destroy gods and all that. Which explains why Loki has been a dick the whole time. You know, pissed about the whole thing, he agrees to join Pierre Noel when he uses his genius level of knowledge of the court system to frame and try Loki for a bunch of crimes. This is when Ma asks to be called Ma, which is what she'll be called from this point forward in the series anyway. After secretly meeting with Mira, who is Loki's girlfriend, who will have tea on him, she helps him for revenge and introduces him to her brother Guzma Yareda, who is the son of the CEO of the Yareda conglomerate. Finding out that the head of the family currently has her serial killer's son in prison, Galerian had him released in order to secure funding for his bribes. It took a year, but Loki's trial was secured where he was found guilty of all these fake crimes and sentenced to 30 years, where he then started dating Mira, and the two later married and she got pregnant. Bruno tells him about the whole thing with the Freeze's family and how they killed his entire family and enslaved him, which is honestly really fucked up. Yukina would be fucking ashamed, man. For a bit, Galerian was happy and was telling Bruno he hopes he and Loki can make it up in the future when he gets out, but then he finds out that Loki was either murdered or unalived himself via a murder, which is pretty fucked up. And it honestly kind of broke Galerian's heart. Yet things were going okay for the next few years for him, as Ma advised him on magic to rework witch trials, and every time he was the judge on a witchcraft case, they were found innocent by him. Though he and Mira were eventually starting to go through marriage troubles. He and Mira had a daughter named Michelle, and they argued a lot by the time she was 2 years old, where Galerian was already leaning on Ma emotionally in that awkward not cheating but emotionally thinking about it phase before actual cheating begins when a relationship gets as nasty as this. On his 20th birthday, a drunk Galerian opened up to Ma about how miserable his marriage is, and honestly how he's only staying with his wife for Michelle's sake, where he kisses her and does the horizontal tango. Now, I'll forgive Galerian because he's drunk and he doesn't know that Ma's his mom, which still a little weird to boink a woman who looks exactly like your mother, which he said already when he first saw her, that she does look exactly like his mom, because she is. But Ma isn't fucking stupid and knows Galerian is her son, and kept having the damn affair with him for 6 months. Safe to say this affair got her pregnant, where Bruno chews her out for sleeping with her own gosh damn son, because even characters in this story knows that's gross. To which Ma explains that sleeping with her son will remove impurities? Look, I don't know, man. I think Mothy was huffing some wild shit while working on this series, since... oh god. Okay, to continue. Since the colleague who helped Ma would be arrested soon for corruption and they'll likely find her new identity, Ma then decided to leave all the way to the Millennium Tree Forest in Lucifenia, where she had her daughter named Nemesis Suduol. This was all a plan to toss Levia's soul somewhere, since that whole thing with Lilith didn't work out, and she used Nemesis's newborn body to put Levia's soul in. As to why she didn't use Galerian's body when he was a baby, it's because he was a boy, and in order for this to work, it had to be the same gender as the soul, so she couldn't put Levia's soul in Galerian because he was a boy and Levi is a girl. She then told her colleague from earlier, Hanma Baldurar, who is Lilith's father, to kill her now that the baby served its purpose, and went on her merry way collecting books and whatnot. Yeah, so obviously Hanma wasn't going to kill a baby, so he decided to raise Nemesis by himself. The house Ma giving birth in and Nemesis' subsequent home she was living in was actually Adam and Eve's house, where I think the ghosts or remnants of Hansel and Gretel are still inside. This is when we finally get a fucking song at this point called "And Then the Girl Went Mad," which is the spirits of Hansel and Gretel telling her that her mom isn't coming back because she abandoned her forever. Growing mad from the loneliness, being the daughter of someone as insane as Ma and in a haunted house, Nemesis hallucinated moments where Ma would come and visit her, but she never did. Despite Hansel and Gretel pissing her off and feeding into her anger, she then was protected by the spirit of Michelle from the story of evil. If you remember, her soul is now protecting the Millennium Tree Forest, as she is the new Millennium Tree that Clarith and Rillian planted about 200-ish years ago at this point. I could be wrong about that. When she was around 6 years old, she found a octopus species to this world called a Ziz Tiama that was secretly Seth Twilight shapeshifting into that form using his vessel of the Key of Wrath. Since, if you remember, Seth became the Demon of Wrath and all that. Given that Nemesis is off her fucking rocker, she thinks he's a gift from her mom, where Seth makes a contract with her in her dreams and pretends to be her friend Ziz-san. Over the years, Hanma taught her how to live in the forest by herself and magic, mainly ice magic and how to telepathically communicate with Ziz. Meanwhile, Ma would reunite with Galerian about 14-ish years later to meet Michelle and basically ask him to sponsor her newest film project about adapting Yukina Freeze's book, Daughter of Evil. In particular, a secret edition Yukina wrote. But I believe this may be the truth about how there were twins and Alan was killed and all that. He mainly said yes because he presumed his mother was involved, and Michelle asked to be Michella, which, oh honey, you're about to in a second. After reading the book, he and Ma had a little chit-chat about the whole thing, where he asked why, quote, Abyss IR, which otherwise known as Irina, would even want all the vessels of sin. Ma says it's because it said if you gather them all together, they can grant any wish you want, like Dragon Balls, I guess, and tries to tempt him to search for them, but he's initially not interested. However, he changes his mind when Michelle and her mother died in a ship attack caused by a giant Ziz Tiama during a trip together. So, up until this point, Galerian has been a very loving father, like he adored the hell out of Michelle, so her death immediately broke him and drove him insane. Fuck Mira, I guess, though, because only her brother grieved her. As it turns out, this ship was attacked on purpose during a very complicated gang war, as Nemesis had joined a gang named Zeus, and they had planned to assassinate this millionaire but was tricked by a Freezus. Specifically, Loki Freezus' younger brother, whose name I forgot, but I will probably remember a little later. The assassination attempt failed, some members were killed, and so Nemesis was so desperate to kill this guy that she ended up using Ziz-san, or Seth Twilight, to sink the ship. And she was actually surprisingly happy about this, which is definitely a red flag. So yeah, Nemesis accidentally killed her own sister. Oops. After the wreckage, Ziz-san gave her the clockworker doll that Postman had taken from the house, I guess when Nemesis wasn't home, and gave it to Ma, who then gave it to Michelle or something. Back home, Michelle's spirit tells her that a group was coming for her but was too late when Bruno and Shido ambushed her. She was then going to try and run away with Ziz-san and found his little pool that connected to the ocean had been frozen over by Hanma, and he completely betrayed Nemesis, despite spending all these years raising her, where Nemesis was then arrested. Her trial was then conducted by her own father, Galerian Marlon, where she was found guilty. Bruno, however, recruited her since I'm guessing he knew this was Ma's incest baby, and gave her the codename Themis 8, while legally faking her own death. Nemesis then became a spy for Pierre Noel, where she became a damn good one, specifically a assassin who was gifted with the revolver, and learned that Galerian was actually the leader of Pierre Noel. Later moving to Lucifenia, this was when Nemesis met and fell in love with Nyose Octo. While they were together, Postman would then give her a list of 5 targets a little at a time that she had to kill, which she did with ease, while falling head over heels with Nozier, which I'm only just now realizing is very vaguely related to her, but the Octo family became really big thanks to that whole horny Venomania blood, so I don't think it's really a big deal in this particular case. So she's then told by Postman to kill Nyose, which she was a little confused given that he had given her the fake name of Shakusan. When she was waiting to confront him about it, she found a letter from his brother Gaman Octo, who is going to become a big player in the later half of the series. As it turns out, Nyose was a member of an anti-government political party and falsely accused of crimes by Galerian Marlon. Yeah, so while Nemesis is dealing with all that shit, Galerian lost his fucking mind where Ma presented him with the spoon of greed and brought up the offer about collecting vessels of sin. He was initially angry, remember he's grieving very hard, but then brings up that Anna Moonlit is in the spoon of greed, and that he could help him grant his wish by making a contract with him. Galerian did and was given the Clockworker's doll, which I guess they took when Nemesis was arrested? Which, if you remember, makes people hallucinate that it's a person. And so the doll presented as his daughter Michelle perfectly, even though it was just a doll. He was then lied to that the soul of his daughter was in the doll, even though it's Eve Moonlit, where he was lied to again that he could speak with her if he kept the spoon with him at all times. Which kind of makes him look insane to anybody who could actually see that the doll is a doll. Just seeing this grown man talking to a doll holding a fucking spoon in his hand. He must look fucking insane. He and Ma then made a pact together to gather all the vessels of sin so he could make a wish to fully revive Michelle. In the meantime, Bruno is definitely thinking Galerian lost his marbles when he talks about Michelle being wheelchair-bound and talking to her using a spoon. Although he always had funding from Guzuma Yarera, she cut him off because, you know, this sounds fucking crazy. This left Galerian in need of money to fund finding the vessels of sin, so he started accepting bribes left and right from criminals and corrupted prosecutors, so criminals would walk free and the innocent would be jailed. Yeah, so when Bindi freezes, Loki's brother who orchestrated that whole thing with the ship that killed Michelle, known as the Titanus, yes, that is a reference to the Titanic, sinking, he then accepted the bribe money and declared him innocent. Over time, Ma brought up that another vessel of sin was with Nyose Octo, which turned out to be the Sword of Lust. Not sure how, but apparently the Sword of Lust became an heirloom to the Octo family. I'm not sure why the fuck Lucana would want the sword of the man who had kidnapped, mind-controlled, and essayed her, but who the hell knows. Since Galerian couldn't get the sword from Nyose, he accused Nyose of murder and took the Sword of Lust as, quote, evidence, where Gammon tried to get it back but left pretty pissed. This is when Nyose later escaped prison and ended up with Nemesis, which is how we get back to Nemesis, who was then forced to kill her lover, and on fucking Christmas too. He then proposed to her despite knowing she was going to kill him, which I think is just heartbreaking, which is where we get the damn song for this portion of the video, called The Last Revolver. Many thought this was the Song of Wrath, but it's not. It is a prequel to it, though. During this heavy confrontation between them, Nyose dropped a bombshell that Galerian Marlon is her father, which sends her into a mental breakdown. Even though Nemesis was completely beside herself and Nyose tried to comfort her, she ended up having to kill him, knowing the most powerful and corrupted man in Levianta was her father. Then she attempted to unalive herself, but Seth prevented her death. Seth then took his human form and explained he's the demon of wrath, and he was Z's son the whole time, explaining the key can shapeshift into anything. He also explained she didn't die because of her contract with him. Seth then gave her a pep talk to live, I guess, which is the one time Seth did something good, I guess. Seth then transformed the Key of Wrath into a mask and golden bullets. Her two options were to kill people she deemed the most evil, or unalive herself. Becoming angered at Galerian for everything he did, she decided she'll basically become a vigilante. Next, Galerian found a restaurant called The Graveyard that had some of the Mirrors of Pride and the Glass of Gluttony, so he attempted to ambush them with charges on operating without a license. As it turns out, the waitress was Gretel, the cook was the demon of gluttony eater Sabella, and the owner was Lich Arklow, where he couldn't get the cook and owner, but he could get Gretel. He used the glass and mirror as, quote, evidence and took them out for himself, where after some shenanigans, Lich and Eater agreed to have them as their master and control the army of the undead. Now Galerian had an entire undead army, I guess, so that was a thing, along with bringing Lich and Eater into Pierre Noel as 6 and 7. Fuck, I hate that number combo. Anyway, Judgment of Corruption and the last revolver kinda happen at the same time. So basically he brings Nemesis into Pierre Noel, as I mentioned earlier, but doesn't know that's his daughter. Actually, he has no idea Ma was even pregnant when they blinked all those years ago, and he doesn't even know Ma is his mother. Galerian doesn't know anything, and that's kind of horrifying. So after the equivalent of World War I happened in the world of Evillious, Galerian fled into the Millennium Tree Forest as a safer place to store the vessels of sin, and specifically purchasing the plot of land that Adam and Eve's house was on. That's when he and Ma worked together to create an entire movie theater for all the vessels, as well as a clock tower and a graveyard. Also, a courthouse, just because? This would become known as the Evil's Theater and will play a huge part going forward. After Galerian's friend Tony was arrested for war crimes and killing one of Pierre Noel's members, Shiro, and although Galerian wasn't interested in him as a friend anymore, he accepted a bribe to find him innocent. This basically caused a snowball effect where the political party Nyose was tied to earlier exposed how fucking corrupt Galerian is, and it caused just this massive civil war. Galerian hid in his massive mansion where everyone pretty much abandoned him, including Lich and Eater, where Adam now appears and confronts him about how stupid he is, and explains the doll is actually Eve Moonlit in there. He refuses to believe it, and the doll sets the opposing soldiers on fire with blue fire, which I'm a little confused on what the hell that meant. Before Adam leaves and abandons Galerian too, he tells him that Ma and Bruno hid something from him before leaving for good. Sickle was also there, I guess, and he tells Sickle that he knows his true identity as a god and asks him what the hell was his secret before he managed to flee. Just as he's reading the last screenplay of Ma, he sees one titled Judgement of Corruption, which really said he was in deep shit now. Kidnapped by Gammon, he explains to Nemesis that she's the incest baby of an affair between Ma and Galerian, and that the whole reason she was never killed in prison or left to die is because Bruno valued her as Galerian's daughter, even though she was just an affair baby. Nemesis joined the political party and would come to clean up the evil left from this corrupt court system. The first she killed was Tony, who caused this entire civil war to begin with, only sparing his wife and son, which Seth mocked her for. She then came to Galerian's mansion to find it already on fire, and although Gammon and Seth told her not to confront him, she did anyway to face him in the fire of the mansion. Nemesis saw that Galerian was fucking crazy and treating this doll as his own daughter, which she knows at this point is dead, which resembled the one she had in her house, because it is. She then tells him who she is, and he's not all that shocked, since right now this dude is on the very edge of insanity right now, so I honestly think he's too far gone to give a shit or to really, analyze what she's saying. In the iconic scene we know from both Judgment of Corruption and Muzzle of Nemesis, Nemesis says she'll let him escape and live if he repents by handing his entire fortune over to her. In a true display of greed, he tells her that he'll never hand his fortune to her, where Nemesis shoots him, where he dies and is left to burn away with the doll. Which the doll also has a song about being Galerian's fake daughter, which is actually a really sweet song from her perspective, if Galerian wasn't evil as shit. For those who remember the scene where Camellia does the same thing and tells him that he won't go to hell if he relinquishes his fortune, that frustratingly never happened, and was instead a premonition dream he had much earlier in the story. After that, Nemesis was later dubbed a hero for killing Tony and Galerian, but her crimes as a gang member were exposed, where she was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but was let out early by Gammon Octo. After that, the political party who helped bring down Galerian, known as the Tassan Party, gained power, but Gammon disappeared after he entered the Millennium Tree Forest, now called the Evil's Forest, due to the Evil's Theater, to get back the Sword of Lust, and he just, completely vanished. This left Nemesis thinking he died, and she ended up meeting with Hanma, who is now dying of old age. She talks with him about how badly his betrayal hurt her. He apologized and told her to kill him if she really wants to, I guess. She doesn't hate him anymore like she used to, but she still wants revenge and to put him out of his misery, so she kills him anyway. Since Gammon went full MIA, and we'll get to where he's been this whole time, Nemesis became the leader of the Tassan party and became a dictator for the Elfagort nation. She used Elfagort to invade Lucifenia and caused a war where she then allied with Bilzenia and Jakoku. Seeking to find a way to win the war she caused, Seth helps her revive a boy of destruction he sealed away named Amostia? I hope I'm saying that right. Amostia isn't a regular Seth maid, but is unable to perform the Rebirthday song, I think because it's just him. But Nemesis used him anyway for an ultimate weapon, simply named Punishment. After testing the weapon in the Millennium Tree Forest and Onigashima, and also killed Bruno after he was captured and brought to her, I guess, at some point. Deciding to visit the Millennium Tree Forest for herself and finding the Evil's Theater where her old house was, she saw all the vessels of sin there where she finally met with Ma, who she hasn't seen since she was born. That's when Ma revealed, or I guess fucking confused with her, I guess, that she abandoned her the moment she was born. She even then brings Postman with her to present her as Hanma's daughter that she turned into basically a human doll, which left Nemesis completely devastated at this bubble burst. Ma then strangles Nemesis by saying she was able to do all this due to having 6 out of the 7 demons inside of her. I did it again, gosh damn it. Anyway, she then plans to kill Nemesis and take Seth Twilight from her, but Postman killed Ma with the Sword of Lust since she knows her mom is contracted and no one can die from a contract. Nemesis killed Ma with the golden bullets, aka the Key of Wrath, and was in anguish that instead of saving the world, she was putting it on a path of destruction because of her wrath. Returning back to Belfagort, she had Punishment fired one last time in a big explosion that destroyed the entire world. However, it's not the end of the world because we still have a lot more songs to cover about how everyone in the afterlife is gonna save the world and rebirth it again. Tune in next time for the biggest fucking headache of this series that we will have, the 4 endings or rebirthday arc. I don't know what the fuck to call this arc, so you guys let me know what to call it. And with that, we reached the end of the main stories of 7 Deadly Sins. This video tackled 5 songs and 2 light novels, which is wild that so much story can fit into all this, but hopefully we'll be able to tackle more songs that makes this whole thing go smoother. According to a few playlists I found, I think we're about halfway through with 40 songs to go. Fucking hell, man. You guys let me know what you think of the Evillious Chronicles and which of the 2 Sin songs discussed here were your favorite. I used to really love Judgement of Corruption, but then Muzzle of Nemesis came out and topped it for being just such a cool song about revenge. As always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, then I have a Discord server. And if you'd like to help support the channel, then consider donating to my Ko-fi page. See you next time!